All right. So we are here for a training on participant recruitment. We'll talk also about community partner buy-in. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Georgia, if you're watching this, we were just talking about all the great work that you did on the materials. So thank you for that. And okay, right now you're looking, where did it go? Okay. So I think in the orientation, we had a pretty good overview of the Google Drive and all the resources in there, but we are going to visit that again today. And then we'll talk about participant recruitment, interview and selection. We'll talk about your program advisor. There's actually not too much to discuss there because I think your advisors are pretty solid and they're in. If either of them cancel, there's definitely a lot of other faculty members who have expressed interest in being an advisor. So, we do have backups, which is great. And then we'll talk a little bit about ethical community partnership development and maintenance and just kind of some of the considerations to think about. And then we'll talk about the next training and what's coming up next. So we're just going to dive right in. So we'll skip that actually. So what I wanted to show you are some of the resources around the selection process and the interviews. So here is actually a document that is in that Google Drive. So as you know, you have this Google Drive. It's titled Alt Break Leader Admin Resources. So you have all these subfolders within there. So this is within, sorry, I hate like sharing my screen. I can't see anything sometimes. It's under participant recruitment here. So here we have a document called Participant Selection Guide, and it talks about some things to think about in terms of when you're interviewing people and how to be very mindful in your assessments and evaluations of people as you're interviewing them. So when you're thinking about, harking back to the orientation, if you remember that community collaborator spectrum with those colors, and it talked about, people kind of being at one spectrum, and you have, people who are maybe like not very engaged at all to your community collaborator, and you have your engaged citizens and so on. Like, you have people that might be very well versed in your issue, and you might have people that are not so well versed, but are really demonstrating great potential for growth. They're really engaged, they're passionate, they have a strong commitment to social justice, and they have experience relating to that. And so they can, still offer your program a lot, right? Because you don't want to necessarily have a bunch of people that are necessarily like of the same exact mind frame or mindset with the same experiences. You want to like really bring in that diversity. So in your interviews, you're going to ask your prospective participants about, ideas they have for your program. What are their motivations for participating? What's their background? Perhaps what are their intentions? What are they looking to get out of the program? And then you also want to think about how each one of these group participants are going to interact with each other, right? So you have the individual, but then you have the overall group. So thinking about group dynamics, thinking about different personality types. And obviously from interviews, you're not necessarily going to be able to know somebody, your interview is probably going to be 30 minutes, maybe an hour, an hour long. And you're not necessarily going to get to know who that person is inside and out in that hour, but you do have a first impression. So from that first impression, how do you think they're going to present to the group? So we have group dynamics, we have variability in experience and knowledge. And this is the active citizen spectrum here. This is the old version, so sorry, I should have updated this with the newer version. And then let's see, selecting faculty, we've already discussed there. So those are just some various considerations, and you have that document in there. In the interview guide, actually, before I do this, I'm actually going to take us over to Teradata, to the application portal. And I actually want to show you the application and what that looks like. Oh, scary. Yeah, you're still seeing this. Okay, so I'm logging in. So your portal's not going to look like this, but what I need to do is I'm going to create applications for you in this portal, the AU Abroad portal. And then I've been told that I can assign you as reviewers of these applications.
Okay.
So you have full access to the applications themselves. You don't have to have, there's no lag time in terms of when we receive the application versus when you can review it. It's set so that only completed applications are available for review. So you won't have incomplete, they have to be fully complete. The students can only submit the application pretty much when all the sections have been completed. So I think what it would look like for you when you log in is, it's probably not going to look anything like this, but you should have some sort of like little hamburger icon here in the upper left corner. And in the left hand, there should be something that says like applications, I would assume. And that's where I think it would end up getting listed for you. So
Okay. And this is, I'm sorry, so what is the link? So you'll share the exact link.
yeah. Once we get you set up in the system, we'll share the exact link. And I'm always happy to like walk you through this too. So, but the purpose for today is
We already have an applicant?
No. That's
Oh.
I don't know why it's even pulling her up. She's in the Honduras program. But anyways, actually where I wanted to take us to is let's see, I was curious if he updated. We should update this so that the application link is like right here on our homepage. I'll ask Luke to do that tomorrow. So we go to your page here and you click here to apply for the Puerto Rico alt break. So this is what students, have you looked in this and seen this? Okay, cool. Did you happen to like open up a test application just out of curiosity?
I did, yeah, but
Okay.
this was a bit, I think before it was fully set up.
Okay, yeah, because the other program that I had initially created was totally an error, so that program has been disabled. So this is a different one from like the first time I sent you all. So this is the new one, and this is obviously, this is the correct one. But if you go here, I'll go ahead and create an application here. So you select summer and so they have to fill in a consent and risk form, and the emergency contact information. I don't know why we asked for that so early on. It seems odd to me, but apparently we do. Participant history. So this asks if they have taken alt break before. Are they interested in taking optional independent study for credit? And have they ever had a letter alleging that they violated AU student conduct? So they have to answer that. Then these are the required essay questions. So why do you want to participate in this program? What do you expect to gain from participating? What is your interest or knowledge? Please describe your involvement on campus. Tell us about your experience. What apprehensions or concerns do you have? Reflect on the role that service or community service, I actually should have changed that to community engagement or action, has played in your life. What is the importance of alcohol-free alt break? Do you have any quotes, words of wisdom, or philosophy by which you live? Describe your language skills if applicable for this
Yeah.
destination. So that's an important one, obviously. And how might you share your learning experiences when you return home? I thought Stephanie from AU Abroad told me that she added the question that I asked her to, and I'm not seeing it here. So,
Would that be that question though?
well, this question was already here, but the question I asked her to add was just a question that said, will you be available in fall 2023 to,
Yeah, like a yes or no.
yeah, yes or no. So she had it as yes or no. She told me she created it as yes or no, and I asked her to change it to short answer just in case like people wanted to extrapolate a little bit, but or elaborate, not extrapolate, elaborate. Oh, look, she just emailed me. I just switched it to short answer. Huh.
It probably just did it right as we're on it.
Yeah, maybe she literally just did. So hopefully nobody else has started applications yet. I don't think so. I feel like it'd be really easy, but I don't know if you told people when you did the presentation to like hold off on starting one.
So I didn't provide the link to the AU Abroad. What I just said was, okay, if you want more information, slash if you want to access the application, go through the Altbreak website.
Got it. Okay.
So I didn't say anything, like I removed, like I didn't put anything that like linked directly to the this platform.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, so yeah, so hopefully that displays, and maybe I'll ask Luke to maybe start an application tomorrow and see if he's seeing it when he's in the office.
So this is like, wow, this is like I'm actually just like these are like serious questions. Like,
Well, I mean, we
like
really want to
wow.
get to know them, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to get to know them, and then this will help you determine, who you want to interview. Um, oh, and then just if you're curious, the travel grant, they can opt out, but they have to like, they're required to at least respond. And
Right.
so they can opt out, but if they opt in, then ask them the following questions. So it asks them, do you receive financial aid from AU? Have you received an Albright travel grant in the past? Please detail your primary source of funding. And then please explain why this program is important to you. And will you be able to participate if you do not receive a travel grant? So they give us that information. And so that helps us make our decision of how much to give them.
Cool.
So definitely, as you're doing the information sessions, let people know that these funds exist. It's not hard, it's not super extensive, the application. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And it's right here built into the application itself. So they don't need to go to like a separate link and apply for it separately. So
How long should their answers be? What's the word range?
um it's a really good question, actually. I mean, I want to just say a paragraph, and I don't know, how long a paragraph is. Or at least like two, okay, maybe like 2, 3 sentences for these questions.
Mhm.
In terms of like why this program is important to you. Yeah, like 2, 3 sentences. The ones for the general application, yeah, I mean, they should be like solid answers, right? Like
Right.
it should give you a really good sense of like who they are, and not just like, oh, I want to go on this program because I'm really passionate about this issue, right? Like it shouldn't be like one sentence or even 2 short sentences. It should be a pretty substantive answer, but it obviously not an essay. And sometimes people do. Like sometimes people kind of overdo it, and that's not, you know, necessary. But they want to be able to show a rich variety of experiences, and just enough because they still have the interview, right? So like just enough to like entice you to want to bring them in.
I'm wondering though, like, do you think that our explanation on the website and then on this platform of the program like makes it clear what the social justice theme is?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, how do I get to it?
Because what I remember when I first drafted it, I had put like some context into it. And then Georgia and I talked about it and we were like, well, we don't really need to put the history of the issue in the description because people just want a quick thing to read so they can like digest it and move on.
I don't think you have too much. You mean this part here?
No, no, no. I just meant no, sorry. The description we submitted to you on yeah, like is it clear enough? Oh, I guess it does say develop a deeper
Yeah,
understanding.
I was gonna say it's very clear to me.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I had forgotten I had added that sentence in about the complex relationship and the yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing is you have a really strong itinerary. I mean, it is subject to change, obviously. And actually, I realized I didn't put like a sentence here, subject to change, but people know that it is subject to change. And so people really have a strong sense, I think, of the type of learning objectives. And I think, oh wait, no, I didn't put it. But yeah, I mean, I think, once they look at it, they can get a pretty strong sense of what the type of engagement
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be, doing. So yeah, I think it's good. But if you want to change anything, it's actually very easy to change this. So let me know.
Yeah, I think the itinerary there looks good. I did think we did update a few things. Like I don't know. I'll let you know later on though, because I don't want to like keep saying Ariana, here's a change. 2 days later, Ariana, here's another one. So I'll just keep you updated like week by week, I think.
Sure. Yeah, and we did add this section about participant expectations, just so that students kind of know that once they're agreed to this, like this is really what they're looking at agreeing to. It's not just like going on this trip, but
Question 1 to 2 hours weekly. What if we have like, does that include like the readings that they're going to be doing? Like, or like, because we'll ask them to do not like too much, obviously, but we'll ask them to do a little bit of their own
we can definitely
exploration.
edit this to say like 2, 3 hours. I mean, I guess we were thinking more of like the trainings themselves will probably be,
Yeah.
we imagine 1 to 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half, maybe two. Um, but yeah, obviously we understand that there is also the commitment of like needing to read things and needing to engage with the materials before you show up to the trainings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can edit that. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we can definitely edit any of this fairly easy. And then I don't know what it looks like once we assign you to applications, but once we do that, I'll walk you through that so that you can know how to review the applications, but it should be
Mhm.
hopefully straightforward. Um, okay. So, that's the application itself. The interviews. So once they have the applications, so once they submit the application, you can start interviewing them pretty much as soon as you're ready, like as you start
Oh,
reviewing them. You know, there's no like set date
Oh,
that
so
you,
it can be before March 12th.
yes,
Right.
yes. So yeah, definitely, because I understand that's why that window's so small. So
Mhm.
let me pull up the
So I
map.
actually got an email from the president of Latinos en Acción,
Mhm.
and he told me he's been great. He told me that he actually referred me to two students who are interested. So he can,
Okay.
so I'll just send them, if you think it's appropriate, I'll just send them the link to the
Yeah,
application and the
yeah,
website. Yeah.
totally.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think Latinos en Acción will definitely be a good source of
Yeah.
students. So, um, okay, so where are we in the timeline here? We are, first of all, in summer. And okay, so we launched the applications. Applications are due on the 12th. You can start interviewing. I know I put March 6th here, but like you can, like I said, as soon as
Mhm.
applications are starting to be completed, you can go ahead and start the interviews. Um, and then the application will obviously close on the 12th, and then you'll still have another week to review more applications. If we want to, I'm just trying to think. So like if you need more time, we might be able to push back, but let's take a look at this. So then they receive their acceptance notice on Wednesday the 22nd. So what'll happen is you'll do the interviews and then you'll let me know either like maybe Tuesday, if you can let me know who you're going to ultimately approve. Um, and I think I have it up here. Hold on, let me see what date I put here. So I put Monday, but it can be Monday or Tuesday, March 20th or 21st.
Okay.
So you'll send us the list of who
Yeah.
you want to accept, and then we're gonna send the acceptance letters. And then it's kind of, I never know what's the best way to do this because I want to CC you, but at the same time, sorry, there's a motorcycle going by. I want to CC you or copy you on there, but I include all their financial information in there, so I don't necessarily. So what
Yeah.
I typically do is you'll just know that by Wednesday I'll send out the acceptance, and in
Mhm.
the email I usually say like, here's your acceptance, congratulations, this is your financial plan, this is where you'll make payments, this is a travel grant that you received, and um your leaders will reach out to you about orientation and the welcome packet. So, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves right now, but also like after you accept them, then we'll have the welcome packet.
Mhm.
As we looked at in the orientation welcome packet, we do have a template for it. So I'll have Luke create your welcome packet with all the information we have from you. You'll just take a look at it and then you can make edits from there.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's not something we expect you to create from scratch. So we'll help you create that and you'll update that. And then, yeah, then you're with your group and then you'll do your orientation, your pre-departure meetings. So if everything goes on schedule and if we stick to this very aggressive schedule, and I absolutely recognize that it's a very aggressive schedule, if we stick to it though, that means that you should be having your orientation by the last week of March.
Our first pre oh wow. Okay.
Now the thing is
Yeah.
it's really giving you just the month of April. It means you have like the last month, or sorry, the last week of March and then the month of April to do, because you're leaving on the 11th
Yeah.
and you have exam weeks and it's going to be really, I think, hard to host.
Yeah.
It's kind of, like you could probably have one more like meeting like the night before you leave or a couple days before you leave. but overall you'll want to have most of your pre-departure stuff done in the month of
Well,
April.
I think like finals week will probably just be like, well, everyone's taking their, studying and cramming everything in. So I think we won't do anything that last week.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it's good that like I was so on top of the pre-departure workshop so early on because I think we have like a plan for first of all we already have a session plan. So all we really need to do is just confirm dates and times and we can't do that until we've recruited people.
Mhm.
So,
And that honestly, like that could be, and that's why we have the question of like, what else are you involved in? And that's something that when you're interviewing students,
yeah.
if you hear that like they're super busy, even if they're really great, like you also have to ask them the question, like, will you be able to show up to the meetings? Or like,
Mhm.
if you have somebody that can just never show up, is it, the right person to have for your program? And it's going to be tough. Like, even though your group is small, scheduling is a pain. It really is. It's so hard. It's so hard to schedule. People always have opposite schedules, especially if you have grad students and undergrad. Like that tends to, as with you in Georgia, like you can have alternating schedules. So, you got to do the best you can, but you might choose somebody who's maybe more available over
Yeah.
somebody who's like more
Yeah.
committed. So, okay. So it's aggressive, but I have full confidence in you. The biggest thing I think to be aware of right now, though, is that you only have a month, which means, I know you had maybe like 9 or maybe even 10 sessions on your original proposal that you
Yeah.
do, which I think a couple of those could be combined,
Yeah.
but you also might have like maybe a couple of sessions that could be optional and they're on the weekend, or like,
Yeah.
there's some things that like are more community builders, maybe that, or, like there's the things where like they need to know this information. And then there's the stuff that's like, also community building, or if you do service for a day, like, yes, it'd be great if everybody could go do service with you as a group, and then there's things that you can do when you come back. Or
What did you mean by so we should be doing pre-departure service?
well, no, I mean, like some students have done that. Like, they partner with a local organization and learn
Yeah.
about the issue here, and then, they go to their
Mhm.
location. And that can involve some service, but that's just an idea that some people have done for pre-departure meetings.
Yeah. I really hope that we can hopefully like the fall activism I think will be really important.
Yeah, and that could also kind of, unfortunately, like that could be a consideration for your seniors, right? Or your graduating graduate
Mm,
students. Like it's gonna, like
yeah.
you might have somebody that's really great, but you don't want to end up having 7 people who are great, but nobody's gonna be there in the fall. Or
Yeah.
they go study abroad in the fall.
Mhm.
So that could also be one of your determining factors. I really leave it up to you and Georgia to like have the conversation as far as like what are the factors you'll be considering and what are your priorities and what are the types of responses you're looking for. I also leave it up to you in terms of how you want to structure your interviews. If you want to do it together, if you want to, split up, conquer and divide, you can make
Mhm.
that call when you see how many people you have applied. Like you might have a lot of applications, and we say like, okay, if you're going to have 7 spots, you should probably be interviewing, I would say, no more than like
14.
14 people. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And if, for some reason people didn't show up in the interview like they did on the written application, you have a lot more people to, choose from, but don't overwhelm yourself by overscheduling.
Yeah. Okay.
So, there will be an event on April 12th. I don't have the exact time yet, but it is going to be it's called AU Experience, AU and Beyond. And it's an experiential learning conference. And so there will be an alt break panel where I'm going to ask my program leaders from the winter and spring to talk about what their experience was, and they'll be presenting, videos and photos and stuff like that for you all. I would still love for you to have some sort of presence there, and you could talk about, what your plans are going to be. But also, if you're feeling too overwhelmed, because I recognize this is a very aggressive schedule, you could also just come and attend it if you want. You don't have to
Okay.
present at this. So, but that is going to happen. So, interview guide and rubric. So when you're interviewing, these are just suggestions. You are welcome to use these questions, or you don't have to use these questions. But these questions are, why did you apply for this particular alternative break program? And then you and Georgia are going to discuss what are the questions you want to ask. You could ask questions like, what role do you usually fill in groups? Do you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert? What does social justice mean to you? What are you passionate about? It could be more specific, like than that. It could be like, what does this particular social justice issue that we're exploring, what does it mean to you? And then how do you feel about the cost of the program? Would it be possible for you? This is, again, you can take these questions, you can leave them. Do you have any ideas for fundraising strategies? Have you ever felt like a minority, marginalized, or isolated in a social situation? How do you work with frustration?
Oh
Respond to the
gosh.
quote. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna
Yeah.
say, I'm like, now that I'm looking at this, I'm not sure I love these questions. I did not write these. Um, so like I said, take them or leave them. But
Okay.
these are, some of the things you might ask an interview or your interviewee. Um, and
So we
then
should put together a list of finalized questions at some point.
yeah. So this is just one that we've provided you. But you don't have to use it by any means. They will hear. Sorry, what was the date that we said? Wednesday, March 22nd. The good thing is that your cycle is like pretty short, so I feel like you won't need to like reject people. Like you can basically reject everyone kind of in one foul swoop after you've made your approval. Because like the spring program, their application cycle was super, super long. And so those people who were interviewed at the beginning, like some people applied and then they interviewed like so much later, like it took them so long and they got super impatient with the experience because they were like, wow, I applied like 3 months ago and then I interviewed like 2 months ago or like a month ago. And so it was a very long application cycle. So for you, it's at least pretty quick. So people know pretty quickly whether or not they've been accepted. So it's probably not going to be a 10, 6 to 8. It'll probably be 4 to 6 pre-departure sessions.
Only 4 to 6? Oh wow. Okay.
Well, I mean, you only have a month. Like, I can't imagine you being
Mhm.
able to schedule more than that. If you have a really awesome group who's like super engaged, then they're like, yeah, let's
That's
meet
the goal.
twice a week, right? Yeah. I mean, if you have one and they're able to meet twice a week, then awesome. You can have 6 to 8, but just realistically speaking, knowing people's schedules, like I feel like that's probably going to be. And you could think about, are there things that you could record and just send out?
Right.
Is there's things that it's definitely discussion is very critical, and there's some things that yeah you can just send out in a recording. So it should be 4 to 6 pre-departure. In terms of the reorientation and post-activism meetings, we say 2. I mean, really, it's as much as they stay engaged in, but like the requirement for us as a program is you should at least meet. We will meet with you as a group to do like a debrief and talk about, some initial ideas and kind of get that started. But then as a group, you should obviously continue and have at least one or two more. And then this is the I mean, they don't have to participate in the experiential learning conference. Oops.
The goal is to really recruit people who are like really interested in the topic and are gonna be able to and willing to like put like time into this.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully you find a bunch of people who have the flexibility. It's just AU students, you all like have a lot of commitments,
Yeah, God.
So, you can only be in so many places at once. But some of our students, they do meet on like Sunday nights, 7:30 to 9 p.m., because that's just the one time that everybody's available. So hopefully that is not your case. Also, our other groups are like twice as big as yours.
Yeah.
It does make it more challenging. So yeah, just let them know these reminders at the end of the meeting this is when they'll know by if they've been accepted into the program. There'll be however many pre-departure meetings, post-program meetings, the learning conference. I am saying they're optional to attend, but we'd love to have you all involved. And then what is your weekly availability for meetings? That way you can start thinking about scheduling. One thing I do recommend, and I don't know, Georgia might know it. Have you heard of When to Meet?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've used it a bunch with you. So
Yeah.
like, it's super easy to create. So that might be a way to help you schedule meetings once you have your group finalized. You can send that out and you can schedule meetings that way. Oops. So, interesting. Maybe. Hold on, where is this? I thought it was in there. Oh, it's probably under selecting participants. Yes, sorry. So under the folder select
Oh, rejection letter.
participants. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, so that's a rejection letter template. We have the acceptance template, but this will be changed with your program information. We do have an alternate template, so you might want to have like at the end, you might have a couple of people that you might like, you really, really like, and you don't want to reject them quite yet. So I would say you could send them an alternate email that lets them know like, we weren't able to accept you, but if anybody backs out, we'll let you know. So it's a rejection letter, but like kind of letting them know they're at the top of the
And
list.
people really don't like get pissed off with these things.
About the alternate, I mean,
No, just like getting rejected in general.
I'm sure they do, it's disappointing. Nobody likes to be rejected. And I definitely encourage you to tell students it's going to be competitive so that they should put their best foot forward and, put it, effort into the application. I don't know. I mean, if students get pissed, like that nobody's ever emailed me like, threatening, they're just like, oh, I'm really bummed, and that's usually about it. And it is disappointing. And, we say like, we encourage you to try next year or, and unfortunately, I just wish our program was bigger, like in our heyday, in our peak, we used to run, I think one year, I think we ran like 12 programs. So, one day we'll build back up
Yeah.
to that. But right now we're like rebuilding after a fire, right? So it's just Yeah. So anyways, we have some templates here. Like I mentioned, we're the ones that will email all of these, so that you don't, we'll CC you them on them, or even blind carbon copy, I think Georgia asked for.
Yeah.
We can do that, so you're aware of all those communications. And then, yeah, you won't need any of this because last year or last cycle, we had to like upload everything manually. It was awful. But this time we'll get you directly into the platform so you can review the applications directly. So those are the resources there. We'll update the welcome packet for you. And that's it there. These are again just some considerations as far as encouraging diversity, not just of like identity, but also difference in thought
Mhm.
and perspective. And thinking about how might you deal with somebody who might be a minority voice. And by that, I mean somebody who might not hold like a popular opinion, for example, right? I think I mentioned this in the orientation, we have, and actually the student withdrew from the program, but,
Oh.
we had a student that like, I mean, she withdrew for other reasons, but, or, a few other reasons, but, like I actually don't think she held any transphobic opinions. From our conversation with her, she seemed actually very supportive of the community. So I don't know kind of like where that story came from, or what the issue was ultimately. But in any case, like I think that was again a reminder to the leaders of like, oh, like people have different perspectives and we still have to like make
Mhm.
space for them too.
Mhm.
Um, Program advisors. So have you all had an initial meeting with the advisors, like since you've been approved, or have you told them like we've been approved? Okay.
I'm keeping them up, like in communicate, like I email them like every week
Yeah.
frequently with like updates and stuff.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, they, are you planning, I can't recall, are you planning on asking them to speak at one of your pre-departure meetings?
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. I mean, I think if we can fit it into the agenda, yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and they don't have to. They're going to be on the program with you. So if you want
Mhm.
to do, like, you can even have a little educational session, a little like class time, when you're there too, with them. So
I would love to like have them come to orientation, introduce themselves, explain why they're excited to advise this program, that kind of thing.
yeah, so I'll talk to them once you obviously have everything scheduled. Definitely, like, we want to make sure that they're invited to everything. In terms of what the expectations are, this is the description, and they've already been provided this. I think you probably even sent it to them. But I think the expectation though that we do tell them is to go to at least 2 to 3 pre-departure meetings. So
Mhm.
orientation is obviously a really good one for them to go to, and we'd love for them to go to every single pre-departure meeting, but we know that like they might not just be able to. So we tell them typically like the first one and the last one are like the most ideal. But if you can attend another one, try to attend another one so that the group gets to know you a little bit. Um, and because, you have 2 advisors who, are great issue
Yeah.
mentors as well, they could also do a speaking thing, but you also have a lot of other people too. Like there's other faculty on campus that you can always invite to come and speak to your group. So, um, so yes, my plan though is, and I haven't been too rushed on this, but because I know that you're in communication, but I will host an orientation with them and talk to them about, exactly what the some of the responsibilities they'll have in terms of like emergency and risk management, um, budget expenses, that sort of
Mhm.
stuff. So, but I mean, I've already talked to them about it, so we're pretty good shape. But we will meet with them soon. Okay, shifting gears. So thinking about community partners. So you're doing a great job. We've discussed a lot about different partners that you've been meeting with, and the quality of this is terrible. My apologies. But these are some of the 10 principles of fair trade. And you're going to see in a moment why I decided to select from this fair trade organization. But I think this was really relevant to what we're doing when we think about this exchange, cultural exchange, knowledge exchange, resource exchange, um, and thinking about how we build our partnerships. So these are 10 principles outlined by WTO. Um, and so you can probably read a lot of them. So I'm not going to read all 10 of them, but some that we want to think about are fair payment. Let's think about. So fair payment, this is the idea of compensating for people's time when we think about our work and fair trade learning. um, how are we compensating our partners? How are we giving back to them? What are they getting out of it, right? Because we know that we're getting a lot of learning, and that's a resource, that's capital. And that in itself is sort of extractive by nature, right? We're
Yeah,
coming in and we're learning from them. So we want to think about how do we compensate them fairly.
cool.
Um, And that's also very closely tied to transparency and accountability, number two, and thinking about how are we building partnerships in which everybody has very clear expectations of what are the objectives of the program, um, who is expected to carry out what, and how will you determine whether or not something has been successful? So I'm actually going to navigate away from this presentation quickly, and I'm going to head back to this document that we looked at orientation, the community partner agreement. So just a reminder that this document is here, and this is kind of the purpose of that, is to really set clear what the expectations are of the various stakeholders. What's our office's role, what's your role, what's their role, um, and then also delegate kind of the different aspects of your partnership here. And again, this is just a template. So if, this is here for you to adapt, edit,
Mm-hmm.
use it for your needs. Um,
We'll probably end up translating it too.
right. Oh yeah, I wanted to see if we had it in Spanish, which I don't think, if we do, it'll probably be in the K drive, which I don't have access to right now. But I can look. So yeah, this is just something, again, that it helps all parties feel, involved. And this is something that we do when we talk about fair payment too. Like that's why for me it's so important that we try to get our partners paid as fast as we can. So I will make sure with your program that we try to set everybody up in advance. We can set them up for wire transfer, and just making sure that we try to get them paid and compensated like in a timely manner as well. And we also create contracts for that reason. So it's very clear of like, this is our promise to you and how we'll get you paid. And these are the services you'll provide. Um, Good working conditions. You know, what I also urge students to think about is really like use your senses while you're there. Use your nose, your eyes, your ears. And if you're going to some of these places and I mean, obviously the places that some of them you'll be going to are just disaster struck. But like if you are noticing like, oh, we went to a school and maybe your initial project or idea wasn't around cleanliness or hygiene or safety, but you notice when you went that there was like a major safety concern, especially if you're working with kids, like thinking about good working conditions, but also for your um, participants as well, like making sure that they're safe, you know. Respect for the environment, you know, try to be as sustainable as
Yeah,
possible. If you can have refillable water
yeah.
bottles,
I don't want to get the whole plastic thing where it's like, yeah.
yeah, like try to be sustainable, like watch our carbon footprint. Something that I actually really want to do at this experiential learning conference is I want to do a fundraiser while we're there. And this fundraiser would essentially go towards trying to make our international programs. And I know alt breaks, we could probably do it. And I don't think we could ever, because AU abroad is going to be present there. There's no way we could
Mhm.
ever do this for AU abroad, but trying to make at least maybe alt breaks carbon neutral. And so hopefully like raising enough funds to plant enough trees to offset for the miles that we've traveled.
Mhm.
Because these are also things like we're leaving carbon footprint just even by traveling. So,
Yeah, exactly.
um, and then one last one that I just want to highlight and then I'll move forward is the no child labor, no forced labor. In this context, we're thinking about the role of children and if you are coming across and working in communities and your program doesn't have a lot of youth element, if I'm,
Mhm.
you know, I don't think you'll be working with a lot of youth.
There's one youth group, but they're 18 to 22, so not really.
Okay, right, okay. You know, but some groups obviously they go and they work with like youth a lot. And so one of the things I really stress with those groups is like thinking about appropriate boundary setting with children. And you might still want to have that conversation with your group, like when you go into communities and children run up to you and like people might want to, you know, like there might be certain boundaries that you want to set with community members. And in particular, when you work with like children, there's a lot of concerns around like abandonment and attachment issues that children develop when they have a lot of rotating groups of volunteers coming through. So,
Yeah.
um, and there are a lot of programs like I participated in a program where we literally stayed in an orphanage essentially, you know, that's where we
Mhm.
stayed and afterwards like I had so much feedback for this program of like just so many things that I thought could have been done so much better, but you know, it was like we were staying in an orphanage and I just imagined that this children that stay there, they just have groups of
Yeah.
Americans or you know, international groups come through like in and out and they become so attached and it's gotta be so hard. So
I actually not to like detract from that, but
no, yeah, yeah.
I volunteered in at an when I was in boarding school. I went on this service trip. It's interesting though, because like the boarding school has like a long-lasting partnership with this orphanage, but it was kind of the same thing where it was in Chiapas actually. And we went for like a week and we like painted and renovated the main street going up to the orphanage, which is actually really awesome. But honestly, like a lot of the kids, like, yeah, we developed like a real connection and then left.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that same idea of like, how are you like the idea of like sustained engagement? Like, how are you going to be continue to be engaged
Mm-hmm.
with the community and like engaged in all aspects of like their humanity, not just like the issues, but also like engaged in their successes and their triumphs and like all of that stuff is so hard when you have this like travel model of like, well, I'm just bouncing from one place to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope that like the post activism portion of this trip will be something tangible that like can be continued and that the partnerships we develop on this trip will also be continued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a challenge. Like I know that's exactly what my South Africa group is dealing with right now is one of they went to a primary school, it's called Manenberg in Cape Town, and they
Yeah.
really bonded with the kids there. And you know, it's a range from like K to 12, basically the
Mhm.
full range. So they call it primary school, but it's yeah, the full range. And like the older students, some of them like they exchange emails, you know, but they were like, you know, how are we going to like maintain this relationship or like how do we how do we continue to, like, we feel so connected to these people now, how do we
Yeah.
continue to sustain this? So yeah, they're grappling with that, and they're thinking about ideas of like, well, can we create a club here? So maybe, we'll be graduating in a year, but like
Mhm.
we have something that exists here on campus
Yeah.
where we have some sort of mentorship program, maybe with Manenberg School here now. So anyways, so I like these fair trade principles because we do have this concept in this field called fair trade learning. So it's this idea of, mutual benefit, reciprocity, students and volunteers are benefiting as well as the host communities. So let me see. Sorry, I'm getting a bunch of things right now. That. So, some considerations or considerations for your conversations with your partners is thinking about um like institutional commitment, and we've talked about that. We've obviously had to be very transparent with, for example, with like the hostel around like, we can't get you payment now, we'll get you payment as soon as we can. So being super transparent about
Mhm.
procedures and protocols, and that's why I'm so transparent with you. Like that's one of my biggest principles is just like if I am transparent with you, that empowers you to be transparent with your partners so that expectations can be set. um Environmental sustainability, we talked about being deliberate in terms of educating your students for the intercultural competency elements and thinking about how are they going to navigate cultural differences, language barriers, um, making sure that they, as the visitor to Puerto Rico, is not putting the burden on the community to like bend to their every whim and their needs, right? So like how are you also teaching your students about how to be gracious guests with practicing cultural humility, right? Um,
Yeah.
so that's really it, we looked at a few resources today that you'll want to utilize moving forward in the weeks moving forward with the interviews, um, the applications. I don't think we have, I'm trying to think if we have a rubric that would be helpful for you. I wish we did, like a rubric that, you could help kind of grade your participants in the interviews. But, again, that's something that you and Georgia can kind of come upon an agreement with. Any questions?